This is my Cyclone cast while channeling Forbidden Rite build with Wurm's Molt. I'm a Pathfinder. I've been farming Toxic Sewer with Wandering Path, and it's been really smooth. So I think I can recommend it. So I'll show you what I have. This build can be budget even though I'm using pretty expensive items. I bought this Diala just because it was one of my league goals, and I just really wanted one, but it's definitely not necessary, and there's ways to do this on a budget, so I'll explain. So for the most part, it's a one button build. I just press Cyclone and a lot of things happen with just this one button. So first of all, Cyclone is linked to cast while channeling. So while I'm channeling Cyclone, I cast Forbidden Rite, which causes me to take damage. So every cast, I take 40% of my life as chaos damage, which is reduced to 10% of my life because of my chaos res. And that damage, I leech it based on this flask. 15% of damage taken from hits is leeched as life during effect, and that leech is multiplied by about 13 from Wurm's Molt. So that's why I'm able to recover the life that I lose from Forbidden Rite. And since I'm taking the Immortal Ambition Keystone from the Glorious Vanity, Huana, I'm able to leech when I'm at full life. I'm also using defensive flasks, pretty much purely defensive. And I specifically use flasks that I can pretty much sustain all the time. So I have to use these flasks to cap my res, and that's fine because I can rely on these flasks. And it's nice because there's a sapphire flask, topaz flask, ruby flask, quicksilver, and amethyst. So all my resistances are covered pretty much, and it makes my gearing much easier. So the damage I take from Forbidden Rite triggers 2 cast when damage taken setups, here and here. The 6th link, cast when damage taken, is linked to Blade Vortex, so this is adding extra damage to my Forbidden Rite. And then this 2nd cast when damage taken is triggering temporal change, despair, because I'm doing a poison build, so these 2 curses they're both damage curses. And then also Immortal Call. I'm actually unsure how much damage Blade Vortex is adding to this build. I'm not able to sustain 10 Blade Vortexes. I'll get to like maybe 5 or 6 while mapping. But yeah, it's been working okay. Also, when I take damage from Forbidden Rite, I trigger this Enduring Composure, gaining 1 endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. And so that's why I gain endurance charges. And I trigger Immortal Call automatically. And I think it's the only guard skill that works for this build because it doesn't reduce the chaos damage taken. So if I use Steel Skin or Molten Shell, it reduces the chaos damage taken. So Forbidden Rite would kind of cancel it, but Immortal Call is nice because it doesn't mitigate the chaos damage. So since this is a poison build, I took Master Toxicist, and this proliferates the poisons on the enemies. So that's really nice for clear. And on top of that, I have 1 unspeakable gifts, and this causes the explosions. This by itself, and this by itself doesn't feel too good, but if you combine them, they're pretty good. One of the issues with trigger builds like this is mana. Because you're triggering so many spells, you're also using a lot of mana, and the way I solved it is first, this reduced mana cost of skills flask, which reduces my mana cost by 50% because I get 100 increase flask effect. And also, when I take damage from Forbidden Rite, I recoup that as mana from this mana mastery. So I can actually run no regen maps, and I'm able to sustain the mana just from the recoup. So the behavior of Forbidden Rite projectiles is a little bit weird. So if I don't use greater multiple proj, and if I don't have this enchant, I only shoot one projectile. But on the gem it says fires extra projectiles at up to 14 surrounding enemies. So if there's no extra enemies, I only shoot one projectiles. And if I use GMP and disenchant, I'm shooting 6. So when I'm clearing maps, I think I have 14 projectiles automatically aiming at enemies, and then 6 projectiles aiming at my mouse cursor. So when I'm bossing against single target, I have to point to where I am and just be on top of the boss so that these 6 projectiles will hit, and then the 1 additional projectile will auto aim. For the Pantheon, I got Lunaris because I'm always being hit, so I'm always getting the 6% reduced elemental damage taken if you've been hit recently. Also Garukhan for the reduced effect of shock. The reason why I'm using Diala's Malefaction is I really wanted to try a build where I use Divergent Cyclone, which it gives more movement speed based on the quality. And so I have it linked to a green socket in Diala's, which is giving it 30% quality. And I'm also using Enhance with, it's actually a level 7 Enhance, which gives 48% quality. So if you look at my Divergent Cyclone, it's only giving me 6% less movement speed. So that's why I move pretty fast while cycloning. It's almost the same speed as running. But Diala's is optional, and you don't necessarily need these exact gems. So I'll talk about what you need to get started. Okay, so first of all, the chest. Instead of a Diala's, I would recommend people to start with Skin of Lords. It's pretty much almost as good, maybe even better, because it gives 100% increased global defenses and a keystone. So if you get one with Val Pact, I have one on my relic, but you could get a Skin of Lords with a Val Pact keystone with 3 green, 3 blue. It should be like, I don't know, 30 chaos or something like that. So instead of using alternate quality gems or awakened gems like I am, just get the regular version. And Enhance is giving me additional projectiles for anomalous Forbidden Rite, and then Cyclone speed, the movement speed. But instead of Enhance, you could just use Void Manipulation, and you'll actually have more damage. You'll have more single target damage, but you'll just have fewer projectiles and you'll be a little slower. But it shouldn't be a big deal. And when you're just starting the build, you really don't need a 6-link cast when damage taken setup with Blade Vortex. You could use a 4-link version or nothing at all. I think Blade Vortex is just completely optional in the beginning. There could be better spells to trigger. I just like Blade Vortex because it fits well with poison builds, and it's a duration spell, so I don't have to trigger too often compared to ward loop builds, I'm taking like 10% of the damage. So I'm not able to trigger cast damage taken very often. So that's why I'm using a duration spell. You also definitely want nearly perfect flasks. You don't need the unique Progenesis and Taste of Hate. You could just use the regular version of Amethyst Flask and Sapphire Flask. But you definitely want reduced mana cost and 15% of damage taken from hits as leech as life suffix, and also reduce curse effect. All with the increased effect prefix. And just to show you what it looks like, if I use a regular Amethyst Flask, I still sustain my Forbidden Rite just fine. I just take a little bit more damage, but I take less damage over time, so this could even be better. But against hard hits, Progenesis is definitely nice. Also, make sure you get the enchant for reuse at end of flask effect. It should be on every single flask. My Glorious Vanity Jewel is pretty important. You have to get the Ahuana to get this Immortal Ambition Keystone. Without this, you won't be able to leech when you're at full life. And then try to get one with Wither on hit. So I have 25% chance to inflict Wither on hit here and here. And these two nodes are really important because the masteries are ones I really want to take. So I told you this mana mastery is sustaining my mana single-handedly, and then increased max recovery from leech is making me leech faster. So Wither is really powerful because you can see on the gray line, it says Wither applies 6% increased chaos damage taken, and it can be inflicted up to 15 times. So 6 times 15 is 90. So it's going to almost double your damage. But it only lasts for 2 seconds. However, the temporal chains will almost double the duration of Wither. And because this build is hitting so often with the Cyclone and Forbidden Rite and the Blade Vortex, I think it's able to sustain Wither, 15 stacks of Wither against bosses. And because of that, I'm also taking the Corruption Anoint, and this increases effective Wither by 35%. So instead of 6% increased chaos damage taken, it applies 9% increased chaos damage taken. The last thing you really need for this build is 100% chance to poison. Right now I have 106%. It's coming from some from the tree here, and I also have 20% chance on here, and Divergent Herald of Agony is giving me 40% chance to poison, and that buff is the effect of that buff is increased with my Circle of Nostalgia ring. So this ring is giving me poison chance as well. If you don't have this ring or Divergent Herald of Agony, the regular Herald of Agony will give you 20% poison on hit. There's lots of nodes on the tree that give you poison on hit. Here, and over here. In the beginning, I was just taking these 3 nodes and anointing this one, and that was sufficient. Okay, to summarize, to begin this build, you need Valpact, a 6-link chest, probably a Skin of Lords. You need Wurm's Molt. You have to take care of your flasks because you're a Pathfinder, and you need 100% poison chance, and you need a good Glorious Vanity Jewel. So I'll talk about the luxury items that you can start buying when you have enough currency. First one is Divergent Cyclone. You can also get Divergent Herald of Agony and Anomalous Forbidden Rite for additional projectiles, and then Divergent Blade Vortex for additional creating additional blades. A level 5 Awaken Cast while channeling support is really nice because of the stun immunity that it gives. It has to be level 5. And if you're using a Diala or Skin of Lords, it's gonna give you +2 socketed gems. So it could just be a level 3 gem and you'll get 2 levels from the item. Progenesis is definitely nice, so try to get it eventually. Also Taste of Hate. There's not a lot of physical damage mitigation in this build, so taking physical damage as cold is really effective. Also a cluster jewel with Overwhelming Malice and Unspeakable Gifts is very nice. Unspeakable Gifts for clear and Overwhelming Malice for Unholy Might it gives 30% of physical damage as extra chaos. So that is 30% more damage for Blade Vortex. And this build is not a crit build, but because we're hitting so much from Cyclone, Blade Vortex, and Forbidden Rite, you're pretty much going to be sustaining this Unholy Might all the time. Also, when you have currency, try to find a good Watcher's Eye with 1 or 2 mods. I'm using Grace and Malevolence, so this jewel is pretty nice. But you could also use Vitality or Clarity just so you can use a nice Watcher's Eye. Finally, an Impossible Escape with Iron Reflexes is nice because you get 30% increase maximum life recovery per second from Leech, and then some damage. Then you also get Onslaught from here and a little bit of life. Okay, I'll talk about some of the flexible items in this build. These are not items that you should definitely go for, but you can just consider it. First, the gloves, boots, and helm slot, also the weapon, they're all flexible. You can wear pretty much anything you want. I chose to wear evasion-based rare items for gloves, helm, and boots, and then a rare weapon with damage over time multiplier and chaos damage. I corrupted this just so that six linking it will be easier, and I just got a random lucky corruption implicit, so that was nice. Also, the amulet and ring slots are flexible. You don't necessarily need a Circle of Nostalgia or this rare ring or amulet. If you can afford it, Ashes of the Stars could be nice because it gives quality to Divergent Cyclone, Anomalous Forbidden Rite. Especially for Divergent Blade Vortex, Ashes of the Stars will give it more stacks, so it'll be much easier to get to 10 stacks or almost 10 stacks. If you're still having mana issues, you could get a Anomalous GMP. The chest slot is also flexible. You could just use the Skin of Lords forever, but you could switch to Dialas if you want for the extra 30% quality on your gems. There may also be some good rare chests that you can use. I think the curse setup with cast when damage taken is really good, but the Immortal Call is kind of optional. I'm not sure how well it's working. And these 2 curses are the 2 things that take up the most mana in this build. So if you have any mana issues, just socket an inspiration in the Immortal Call slot. Since they're in the same cast when damage taken setup, they're gonna trigger at the same time, so it's gonna take up a lot of mana all at once. So that's why inspiration could be a good idea. If you look in the path of building, Dying Sun is a lot of damage for Forbidden Rite, but the sustain is really bad. It takes like 45 charges and it only lasts 5.2 seconds. So it's not going to last very long, and I'd rather have a ruby flask that I can rely on to be up all the time. So that's why I'm not using Dying Sun. You can also consider using Call of the Void and Winter Weave. What this does is when you take damage from Forbidden Rite, the chaos damage you take from it is going to chill you, because Call of the Void says all damage taken from hits can chill you. And then Winter Weave is going to reverse that chill effect. So you're actually going to be 30% faster. 30% faster attack speed, cast speed, and movement speed. But it doesn't work very well with Taste of Hate because you're going to avoid most of the chills that you're going to take. So the chill effect is not going to be permanently up. I also considered a hit-based version of this build where I cast Forbidden Rite but I don't poison, so I just rely on the hits. And that is, I thought it's kind of nice because I can use Petrified Blood to sustain the leech when I'm at full life, and also use Pain Attunement for 30% more spell damage when on low life, which is all the time. But I just didn't like it because I wanted to use the Poison Prolif Ascendancy. And Pain Attunement is kind of far away from this tree. I know it doesn't look like it, but there's a lot of useless nodes on the way. I also just didn't like Petrified Blood. It made me squishier and it takes up a lot of mana space. So yeah, I just didn't like it. Also the tree. The clear speed and simplicity of the gameplay is definitely the strengths of this build. The single target is okay, but I did kill Shaper, so I'll show you how that went, and I'll end the video there.
side with cant.
Let me help you.
The horror. Stop. Obstacles destroyed.
Life is so brutal. so brutal.